بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا فلا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. أولئك أصحاب الجنة خالدين فيها جزاء بما كانوا يعملون. ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه إحسانا حملته أمه كرها ووضعته كرها وحمله وفصاله 30 شهرا حتى إذا بلغ أشده وبلغ 40 سنة قال رب أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأصلح لي في ذريتي إني تبت إليك وإني من المسلمين. أولئك الذين نتقبل عنهم أحسن ما عملوا ونتجاوز عن سيئاتهم في أصحاب الجنة وعد الصدق الذي كانوا يوعدون. والذي قال لوالديه أف لكما أتعدانني أن أخرج وقد خلت القرون من قبلي وهما يستغيثان الله ويلك آمن إن وعد الله حق فيقول ما هذا إلا أساطير الأولين أولئك الذين حق عليهم القول أولئك الذين حق عليهم القول في قد خلت من قبلهم من الجن والإنس إنهم كانوا خاسرين ولكل درجات مما عملوا ولكل درجات مما عملوا وليوفيهم أعمالهم وهم لا يظلمون. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر ليلة القدر خير من 1000 شهر تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم.
Mu'mineen and Mu'minat, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to this 7th of a 9-series Majlis series, 9-series Majalis on the topic of how to be part of the movement of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam. We had the honor of listening to recitation of the Holy Quran by Sayyid Muhammad Jaffry. And after this, we will hear from Hujjatul Islam, Sayyid Ali Aqib Jaffry. Before that, a salam in honor of Imam Ali, alayhi salatu wassalam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Curled up in my chair, sometimes I despair, what my fate will be before His Majesty. His will be the throne, I will be alone on that other side of infinity. Justice will proclaim, O Mr. Talk No Deed, your selfishness and greed deserve no clemency. With no one left to blame, I'll hang my head in shame, and nothing will occur to me except your name. Ya Mushkil Kusha, Ya Mawla Ali, come and rescue me from my own tyranny. In this time of need, won't you pay me heed? Won't you intercede with His Majesty? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Shah-e Awliya, Imamul Muttaqeen, Allah's mercy shines upon your blessed face. Shah-e Awliya, Imamul Muttaqeen, Allah's mercy shines upon your blessed face. Not just your Shia, the world cannot forget the standards that you set for justice and grace. Clueless in the dark, I found your Noah's Ark, showing me the light, anchoring my faith. Walking in the sands or traveling through space, everywhere I had your footsteps to trace. Ya Mushkil Kusha, Ya Mawla Ali, come and rescue me from my own tyranny. In this time of need, won't you pay me heed? Won't you intercede with His Majesty? You would never fight in anger or for might, for Allah's pleasure was your one and only goal. But those who came to blight the messenger of light would meet your Zulfiqar and pay a heavy toll. Yet setting you apart were strength of head and heart, your eloquence in speech enchanting every soul. Never shall we find such opposites combined. Never shall we see a man of such control. Qahirul Udu, Waliyun Wali, Madharul Ajaib, Ya Murtada Ali. In this time of need, won't you pay me heed? Won't you intercede with His Majesty? Sallu ala Muhammad. Suddenly I hear a whisper in my ear. The worlds belong to those whose actions match their prayer. I'll be on your side only if you abide by the trust that binds the seeker and the guide. And if you've done your best, then put your fears to rest, for heaven waits to greet your soul as Allah's guest. And never feel alone, for Allah's in His throne. His mercy reaches out to ants inside a stone. Shukran ya Mawla for answering my call, for showing me the light in my moment of need. I will try to prove that I am your Shia, not just in my talk, but also in my deed. Ya Mushkil Kusha, Ya Mawla Ali, come and rescue me from my own tyranny. In this time of need, won't you pay me heed? Won't you intercede with His Majesty? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Mu'mineen and Mu'minat, it is time now for the lecture by Sayyid Ali Aqib Jaffry. A brief introduction for those who are here for the first time to the speaker. Sayyid Ali Aqib Jaffry started his career as an electrical engineer. He did his bachelor's in electrical engineering from the University of Engineering and Technology and won the President's Gold Medal for being the top student in his graduating class. He then proceeded to the University of Washington in Seattle, where he completed a master's in electrical engineering. Then he had a call of the heart and he moved to Qom in Iran to pursue higher religious studies, and he has been resident there since then. He completed his bachelor's and his master's in theology, and he is currently a student of Dars-e Kharij, which, as you know, is the highest level of instruction in the Shia madhab. Sayyid Ali Aqib Jaffry has been a principal advisor to the Anjuman-e-Mohammadi Islamic Community and Research Center. He has conducted many a workshop and seminar here on topics of contemporary interest, topics of fiqh, issues such as inheritance, khums, marriage. Internationally, Sayyid Ali Aqib Jaffry has delivered a series of very impressive lectures and workshops on theological issues, including proofs of the existence of God, which have actually helped push back against the tide of atheism that has spread in the West and has also permeated our communities. So there's a large following that Sayyid Ali Aqib Jaffry has globally because of these efforts that he has made to address topics that are not often addressed from our members. So without further ado, I will request Hujjatul Islam Sayyid Ali Aqib Jaffry to recite the 7th of this 9-series majalis on the topic of how to be part of the movement of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam. Among your loudest of salawat, ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Remembering your marhumeen, especially Sayyid Wajid Ali Shah, Sayyida Mushtaq Begum, Sayyid Tajammul Abbas, Sayyida Munazza Iftikhar, Sayyid Dilawar Abbas, and Sayyid Zahir Ahmad Shah, Suratul Fatiha. Salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وخاتم النبيين سيدنا ونبينا وشفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب قلوبنا بالقاسم محمد. صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الغر الميامين المعصومين من يومنا هذا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وخطابه المتين وهو أصدق القائلين وقوله الحق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا ليتني كنت معهم فأفوز فوزا عظيما. صلوات. I wish I was with them. I would have achieved a great success. We all wish and desire for success in whatever we do, whether it be actions pertaining to this world or the hereafter. The desire to success is part of human nature. There would be no one in this room who wishes for a failure. We all want success. But what is the definition of success? How would you know if you have succeeded or failed? What is the criteria for measuring success? Well, one common criteria, or one common way people measure success is by setting goals for themselves. And at the end of a fixed period of time, they evaluate their performance, and if they have achieved their goals, they consider themselves to be successful. That goal could be becoming a doctor, becoming an engineer. It could be making an X amount of money at the end of the year, or having a big house or a big car or whatever, or getting to this position of authority. You can set up whatever goals you want and measure your success against that. Is that truly success? What if a person sets up a goal to rob a bank and he succeeds in robbing a bank? Would you really call him a successful person? Would you? No. Why not? He also set a goal for himself and he accomplished that goal. Why is he not successful in your eyes? So it is not only setting a goal and meeting it that will define success. The goal has to be right. If you set a right goal for yourself and accomplish it, only then you can claim to be successful. So what qualifies as the right goal? There are goals that we set for ourselves, and there is a goal that our Creator has set for ourselves. If we take and if we are able to fulfill the goal of our creation, only then we can claim to be successful in life. Anyone who fulfills the goal of his creation, only that person can claim that he has succeeded. That is why it is important to know and fulfill the goal of our creation, of the Creator, goal of the Creator. Imagine a company who manufactures mobile devices, and they come up with a product, and the product does not function as it is designed to do. If it does not perform the tasks it is required to do, what does the company do with it? What happens to that device that fails to deliver? It is thrown in the bin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also has a bin. And whoever does not fulfill the purpose of their creation, that is where they all will be thrown into. The fuel of which are humans and stones. May Allah all bless us with success. In order to inform us of what the purpose of our creation was, He sent us prophets with the message of what is right and what is wrong. And He also made arrangements to protect His message so that humanity till the day of judgment are able to fulfill the purpose of the creation. When we were talking about the movement of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam yesterday, we said one of the Quranic principles that was driving his movement was not submitting to humiliation, not submitting to indignity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want any human to indignify himself, to subject himself to humiliation even for a fraction of a second. And the movement of Imam Hussain was to help him, elevate him, raise him from that level of humiliation to the highest levels of izzah. And how can that happen? It again goes back to the purpose of creation. When Imam Hussain, the tradition that we mentioned on the first and second days, on the second days of these series, I will repeat it for those who are new today. Imam Hussain ﷺ addressed his companions saying, Ayyuhan nas, inna Allah azza wa jal, ma khalaqal ibad illa liya'rifuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create His creation, His servants, but for the very reason that they should know Him, for His ma'rifah. فَإِذَا عَرَفُوهُ عَبَدُوهُ. When they will know him, they will worship him. When they will know him, they will worship him. And the hadith continues, it says, فَإِذَا عَبَدُوهُ إِسْتَغْنَوْا بِعِبَادَتِهِ عَنْ عِبَادَتِ مَا سِوَاهُ. When they will worship him, they will become free from the worship of others than him. It is in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that man acquires his izzah. And it is in the worship of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he becomes humiliated. If you respect someone because of his wealth, you are bowing to someone or something which is lowly than your own self. If wealth is the criteria for submission to someone, if power is the criteria for submission to someone, then you are submitting to something that is low than yourself. It is in the itaat of Allah, it is in the obedience of Allah that there is true izzah, there is true peace and calm and tranquility. That is why Allah says, "Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub." Remember that it is in the remembrance of Allah that the hearts find tranquility. When Imam Hassan alayhi salatu wassalam was leaving this world, one of his companions came to the Imam with this question, "Please advise me." The advice a person gives at the end of his time in this world is a very important advice. It is the crux of what he has learned in this dunya. What did the Imam said to that companion of his? He says, "Iza aradta izzan bila ashiratin." If you want izzah without the backing of any tribe, wa haybatan bila sultan, and if you desire haybat and dignity without the backing of a king, فَخْرُجْ مِنْ ذُلِّ مَعْصِيَةِ اللَّهِ إِلَىٰ إِزِّ طَاعَةِ اللَّهِ. Then exit the subjugation, the humiliation of disobedience to Allah and enter the pride and izzah of obedience to Allah. Take this journey from sins towards obedience to Allah, if izzat is what you want. So taking humanity out of humiliation would not have been possible without inviting them towards obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why the prophets were sent. What was the message? أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهِ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا. We sent a Rasul in every prophet, in every nation, with what message? أَنِ اعْبُدُوا اللَّهِ, worship Allah alone. وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ, and stay away from the taghut. Stay away from those who are deviant, who have deviated and deviate others. These are the taghut. Stay away from them. These taghut could be in Muslim lands, they could be non-Muslim lands. It is important to understand that what is forbidden is accepting the wilaya of taghut. The Imams lived in Muslim lands, and in most of the times there were taghuts that were ruling over them. So living in a rule of a taghut ruler is different than accepting the wilayat of a taghut ruler. And this distinction needs to be clear. You can change your country of residence. You can move from one country to another. It is okay as long as you do not change your wilayat. As long as you do not change your wilayat. You could be living in a Muslim land, in the Muslim, under the rule of a divine Imam, yet be under the wilayat of a taghut. That can also happen. Whose rules govern your soul? आपकी जान पर, आपके कल्ब पर, आपके अफकार पर किसकी हुकूमत है? That is what will define whose vilayat you are under. A person can be living in Sham and be under the vilayat of Amirul Mu'mineen, while a person could be living in Kufa and can be under the vilayat of the enemy of Amirul Mu'mineen. It can happen. So you're welcome to change your countries if it becomes difficult to protect your deen in one country. But you're not allowed to change your vilayat. All the harmful effects of vilayat that were mentioned in that tradition is if you accept the vilayat of a waliul ja'ir, whose rules govern your actions, whose rules dictate your thoughts and what you decide to do and what you follow and what you eat and what you drink. Islam is compatible with a lot of different scenarios and situations. In Islam, we have primary rulings and we have secondary rulings. Pork is forbidden in one condition, and when the conditions change, the same ruling is lifted, and a person who is dying and there is no way for him to save his life but to eat pork, he can consume it. This shows how compatible Islam is with changing scenarios. But there are certain red lines. You're not allowed, one is not allowed to change or enter the vilayat and the guardianship of a taghut, of an oppressive ruler. And the moment one chooses that decision, makes that decision, he has humiliated himself. Because he has left the vilayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what does these taghut do to them? What does in Surah Baqarah or Al Imran in Ayatul Kursi, what does it say? Allahu waliyul ladhina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. Allah is the wali of those who believe, and he takes them out from zulumat towards nur. Walladhina kafaru awliya'uhum at-taghut. Those who disbelieve, who reject, their awliya are taghut. So if a person enters the vilayat of taghut, what do these taghut do with them? يُخْرِجُونَهُمْ مِنَ النُّورِ إِلَى الظُّلُمَاتِ. They take them out from the nur towards darkness. This was what was happening when Imam Hussain alayhi salam chose to stand up. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. People were ready to accept the vilayat of the oppressors. The movement of Imam Hussain alayhi salam is universal. It is not limited to Muslims only. There are messages for non-Muslims and other denominations to learn from. Why? Because the movement of Imam Hussain was not against any other religion. He was not fighting the Christians or the Jews or any other group of people. He was fighting his own people. He wanted to reform his own people, and that problem will occur in all nations and all religions. They all get deviant after a certain time, and reform among people is needed. And Imam Hussain sets an example of how true leaders reform their nations. And this is a lesson for all to learn, whether they are Muslims or non-Muslims. It is important to realize that there lies the universality of the message and movement of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam. And this is not limited to tragedy of Karbala. This is not a massacre that took place. And we mourn a massacre just like other tragic events take place in life, and people are commemorating and remembering those events every year. This is different. It is not just a tragic event that knows no equals. No. If you look at other tragic events, had those people known the outcome of their actions and the trap they were getting into, they would have changed course. if they knew the tragedy, the massacre that is going to take place, if they continue on one path, they would have changed course. But Imam Hussain alayhi salam knew the outcome of his decisions, yet he stayed on that path. He intentionally chose this path because he wanted to save people from humiliation. He wanted to save. What was the objective of the movement of Imam Hussain? Because we can only be part of his movement when we align ourselves with the objectives of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam. Was it shahadat? Or was it something else? Was it becoming a ruler? Did he want governance? Did he want shahadat? Some people claim that he wanted to become the ruler, which is not wrong in one sense. Because when he refused to do bay'ah of Yazid, what did he say? لَيْسَ لَهُ هَذِهِ الْمَنْزِلَةِ This station does not belong to Yazid. And I am the member of the prophetic mission, and these are my attributes, and these are my qualities. He was introducing himself to be worthier than Yazid of this station of imarat and leadership. So he had introduced himself as more eligible. But was that the purpose of his movement? You can only decide if a movement is successful if you're able to achieve your purpose. If that was the purpose, then he failed to achieve it. Was it shahadat then? Was it martyrdom? Would Islam allow you to just go and sacrifice yourself for the sake of being a shaheed? No. Shahadat is sacred because you sacrifice yourself for something that is holier than your own self. That is what brings taqaddus and sacredness to a shaheed. He sacrifices himself for something that is higher than him. You wouldn't sacrifice your health for your wealth. You would sacrifice your wealth for your health. So Imam Hussain alayhi salam is sacrificing not only himself, but all of his family members. Everything that he had, that purpose had to be supreme. That purpose has to be worthy of this sacrifice. What was that purpose? It was neither shahadat nor governance. These two were to be the natural result of the purpose he was trying to accomplish. So there were two possible outcomes of his movement. Either he would become shaheed, or he would become the ruler of the Muslim Ummah. These were two possible results. His objective was something holier than that. His objective was Amr bil Ma'ruf, Nahi anil Munkar, and that too to establish the divine law of Allah on the face of earth. And that had to be done through Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. Inshallah, we'll go into the details of it. Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahi anil Munkar is one of the most important wajibat that is assigned to all the Muslims. The tradition says, Farizatun azima. It is an azim fariza, tuqamu bihal faraiz. All the faraiz, all the obligations are established because of it. Because of this fariza of Amr bil Ma'ruf wa Nahi anil Munkar. He wanted to take them out from humiliation to the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that the kalima of Allah, another Quranic principle, kalimatullahi hiyal uliya. The kalima, the word of Allah is supreme. The law of Allah is supreme. That will only be supreme when only and only the law of Allah rules over us. لِتَكُونُ كَلِمَةِ اللَّهِ هِيَ الْعُلْيَا. That was the purpose that he wanted to accomplish. The establishment of the divine law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was in the establishment of divine rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that people will be able to fulfill and reach the perfection that they are designed for. When the prophets were sent, it is said that all prophets have been sent to fulfill certain objectives. The first objective is the preservation of Tawheed. If you want to evaluate the Islamic laws, you will again have to compare them with the objectives behind it. All prophets have been sent for the preservation of Tawheed. And that is why the punishment of apostasy was decreed. All prophets were sent for the preservation of aql, an intellect. And that is why the prohibition of intoxicants came along. It is through aql that humanity establishes its connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Aql is not intelligence where a person can make more money because he's smart. When Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib was asked about aql, he said, it is ma ubida bihir rahman wa kusiba bihil jinan. It is something through which Allah is worshipped and the paradise is earned. That is aql. So one of the objectives of all the prophets was the preservation of aql, and that is why alcoholic drinks were forbidden. Another goal, purpose that the prophets were after was the preservation of lineage in the society, and that is why the punishment for adultery was legislated. There are 5 main objectives. Another objective was the preservation of wealth. And that is why the severe punishment of theft was legislated. So the wealth is preserved to avoid financial problems and chaos. And finally, the preservation of life. The sanctity of human life be maintained, and that is why the punishment of life for life was legislated. So there were objectives that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had in mind when the divine Sharia is legislated. So if you want to measure the effectiveness of any religion, if you want to evaluate the laws of Islam, you cannot just compare the laws of Islam with other man-made laws. You have to compare each set of laws with the objectives it wants to accomplish in order to see if these laws are worthwhile. So when you compare the laws of Islam with the objectives it wants to accomplish, you will testify that these are the best laws. They have achieved, they accomplish if they are exercised by the divine rulers with the support of the masses. When you look at the diversity in creation, not only legislation, when you look at creation, you see diversity in creation. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Hazrat Adam alayhi salatu wasalam, and He showed to him all of his offsprings, till the day of judgment, all of the offsprings. When Hazrat Adam looked at them, he saw diversity in them. He saw some of them have very little noor, some of them had larger noor. Some of them were short, some of them were tall. Some of them were fat, some of them were thin. Some of them were white, some of them were black. Some were ill, and some were healthy. So he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for permission to ask a question. He was granted permission. He said, "Oh Allah, had you created all of them alike, if they were all created alike, there would be no differences among them. They would not be jealous of each other. What is jealousy? Hasad जिसे आप कहते हैं, hasad, jealousy. Jealousy is the desire that a blessing that someone else has be taken away from them. ये आरज़ू करना कि जो नेमत किसी दूसरे को मिली है वो ज़ाया हो जाए. That is jealousy. You have never been jealous because somebody else has two eyes. You're never jealous because somebody else breathes in oxygen, because you also do that. People are generally jealous of something that they don't have and others have. So the question was an important one. Wallah, had you created all of them alike, if they were all the same size, if they were all the same shape, the same color, same wealth, same health, they would not be jealous of each other. And look at what jealousy does to humanity, to mankind. It is jealousy that makes a brother fights with his brother. It is jealousy that made Hazrat Yusuf's brother put him in the well and decide to kill him. It was jealousy that resulted in the first murder on the face of earth. As Hazrat Adam al-Islam is asking the very same question, had you created them alike, they would not be jealous of each other. And the reply came, there is wisdom behind this diversity. And that wisdom again is in accordance with the purpose of creation. Allah says, when the rich will look at the poor, he will recognize, he will realize that the wealth that I have does not belong to me. It is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when the poor will look at the rich, he will realize that if I do not have it, it is possible that Allah can bless me with it too. So it is not intrinsic, it is not dhati. The rich will fear losing the wealth and he will turn to me and say, oh Allah, please don't take this blessing away from me. And the person who is poor will pray to me saying, oh Allah, please bless me with wealth just as you have blessed this person with wealth. When the person who is healthy will look at the one who is sick, he will raise his hands in prayer and say, oh Allah, please bless me with shifa, just as you have blessed others with shifa. And those who are healthy, when they will look at the sick, they will pray to Allah, Allah, keep me blessed with the blessing of health and do not take this blessing away from me. And as a result, every creation of mine will have the word Ya Allah on their lips. Everyone will call me, will turn to me for my blessings. So there is hikmat. The nature of creation is dictated by the purpose of creation. The laws of creation, the laws of legislation are dictated again by the purpose of creation. The movement of Imam Hussain was to protect that purpose of creation. If a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if during the time of a prophet of Allah, there are other prophets who claim to be prophets, does that in any way affect the prophethood of the divine prophet? If a prophet is claiming to be a prophet with miracles, and there are other people who also claim to be prophets, does it hurt the prophethood of the Prophet of Allah? Yes or no? No, it does not. What would happen if the Prophet of Allah accepted the prophethood of the fake prophets? What would happen? Obviously, he would lose his prophethood right there and then. But it would not be limited to that. It would not be limited to that. There's something important I would like to mention, and then inshallah we'll go on to Masaib. If the prophet, when Allah chooses a prophet, He does not choose me or you to become the prophet of Allah. He has to choose the best of His creation to become the prophet of Allah. He has to have knowledge, and he does, to make that choice. If he makes an improper choice, what does this tell you about the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? It tells you that his ilm, his knowledge and power is limited. And God with limited power is not a God. A God with limited knowledge is not a God. So if the Prophet of Allah at any point in his life, he decides to go and do the bay'ah of any other fake prophet of prophet, he would not only lose his prophethood, not only the divine station of prophethood will get torn apart, the station of divinity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also get torn apart. Because Allahu a'lamu haythu yaj'alu risalatah. Allah knows best where to place his prophetic mission. If Allah chooses the wrong person as a prophet, I don't want to worship that Allah. I don't want to submit to that Allah who doesn't even know where to put his prophetic mission. That is why you will never see a prophet. You can see other prophets claiming to be prophets in his time, but the Prophet of Allah can never submit to anyone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the Imam is the representative of the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if the Imam submits to someone else, if the Imam goes and does bay'ah of someone else, not only his imamat gets tarnished and torn apart, he is the representative of the Prophet of Allah. The prophethood gets tarnished and torn apart. Because the Prophet then did not know whom to appoint as his Imam. And if the Prophet didn't know, it doesn't stop here. The Tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the ilm of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gets under question. The divine station of divinity, the sovereignty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gets under question, and then everything falls apart. Everything falls apart. So if Hussain alayhi salam had submitted himself, had done bay'ah of Yazid, not only the station of imamat, the station of prophethood, and the station of tawheed and ilm of Allah and all the attributes of Allah, everything would fall apart. Everything would have fallen apart. Allahumma salli ala. Then there would be nothing left of divinity. Nothing would be left. So the sacrifice that Imam Hussain did, that is why he said, Mithli la yuba'u mithlah. The likes of me will never do the likes of you. Because submitting to someone like Yazid would mean the destruction of imamat and risalat, and not only that of the Holy Prophet, the risalat of all the prophets, and the destruction of Tawheed. Everything. There would be no divinity left after that. So Imam Hussein's mission was an azim mission, was a great mission. And those who happened to taste a part of it end up saying, Shah Ast Hussain. Hussain is a king. But then he realizes that it's not enough to call him a king. He says, Badishah Ast Hussain. He is the king of the kings. Again, that is not enough. He says, Deen Ast Hussain. Hussain is religion itself. Then realizes this is not enough. Deen Panah Ast Hussain. Hussain is where Deen seeks refuge. Deen is where? Hussain is where Deen seeks refuge. Sardad Nada Dardasta Yazid. He did not give his hand. He did not subject himself into humiliation, in turn destroying the station of imamat and nabuwat and tawheed. No, he did not do that. Haqqa ke bina ilah ast Hussain. Haqqa ke bina ilah ast Hussain. This is who Hussain was. This is what his movement stood for. The protection of all the divine institutions. the protection of the purpose of creation. If all the divine institutions had been tarnished and destroyed, then all of this creation would become meaningless. Then it would be meaningless to have this world go on if you could not reach your Creator. That is why Karbala happened. That is why Imam had to take that path, knowing what the outcome was. Because he was not there to save himself. He was there to save the divine institutions, for which it deserves to sacrifice everything that you have. Yourself, your family members, your children, your brothers, your sisters, whatever you have, it deserves to be sacrificed for the preservation of these divine institutions. And it was Hussain ﷺ's blood that saved Islam. Yes, there were companions along with him and his family members, but it was the blood of Hussain ﷺ that saved it. On the night of Ashur, when Imam Hussain ﷺ addressed them, allowing them to go, if you stay, you will all be killed. I let you free of the oath of allegiance. Leave. Protect yourselves. If you do not want to protect yourselves, take the hands of one of my family members and leave. No one is ready to leave. Hazrat Abbas ﷺ was the first one to stand up and express his loyalty. He's the first one to stand up and express his loyalty, saying, "Lima naf'alu dhalik, linabqa ba'dak." Why should we do that? To stay alive after you? Life is worthless without you. We can never do that. And on the day of Ashur, one after the other, the companions left for the battlefield, defending their Imam, securing paradise. Then came the turn of the family of the holy household. One after the other, Hazrat Abbas is watching all of them leave, one after the other, till Imam Hussain notices Hazrat Abbas ﷺ standing in front of him with the flag in his hand, seeking permission to go to the battlefield. Saying, "Zaqa sadri an hayatid dunya." My heart is tired of this world, my Mawla. Give me permission to seek revenge from these munafiqeen. Imam Hussain turns to him. "You are the flag bearer of my army. How can I let you go? If you go, my army will fall apart." As the Abbas responds, "But where is the army? There is no army left." Imam Hussain allows him with this statement, saying, "If you want to go, then see if you can get some water for the children. See if you can arrange for a few drops of water for these thirsty children." Hazrat Abbas ﷺ takes a water bag, goes into the battlefield, addresses the enemy, advises them, admonishes them. Maybe they would listen, but those whose stomachs are full of haram, even if the Imam preaches to them, it has no effect on them. But it was the duty, and every Shaheed tried to admonish them. So Hazrat Abbas ﷺ does the same. And when there was no response, he turns back to the Imam. He comes back to the Imam and informs him of what had happened. "This is what I said, and this is what they said. This is how I argued, and this is how they responded." And this discussion was going on when once again Hazrat Abbas heard these cries, "Al-Atash, Al-Atash, Hai Pyas, Hai Pyas." Hazrat Abbas ﷺ could no longer hear these voices. He picks the water bag, and this time he heads towards the river Euphrates, breaking the ranks of the enemy. The river Euphrates was guarded by 4,000 soldiers. 4,000 soldiers guarding this river. Hazrat Abbas fought whoever came in his way, and eventually he landed his horse into the river Euphrates. Today Abbas controls this river. He takes some water in his hands, he looks at it. He doesn't drink it, he looks at it. Did he see the face of Sakina in it? Or is he trying to tell to the enemy that this is the river that you were preventing us from getting to? Today Abbas controls this river alone. Or does he want his horse to drink this water? Because the horse doesn't want to drink the water unless the master drinks. But how can Hussain drink knowing that his master is thirsty? How can Hussain drink water knowing that his master is thirsty? The verses that Hazrat Abbas recites here, he says, Ya nafso min ba'dil Hussain huni wa ba'dahu la kunti antakuni. O my soul, O my nafs, living without Hussain is worthless. It should not happen that Hussain leaves this world and you are still alive. Haza Husainun waridul manuni wa tashrabina baradal ma'ini. This is Hussain about to drink from the fountain of death, and you want to drink from the fountain of water? Hussain is about to drink from the fountain of death. How can I drink from the fountain of water? Hayhat ma haza fi'alu dini. This is not what my religion teaches me. Wala fi'alu sadiqil yaqini. And this is not what a person of firm faith does. He announces why he did not drink water. My master is thirsty. How can I drink from this water? He fills the water bag with water. The water bag is filled. Half of the mission is complete. What is left is to take this water bag back to the camps. Now Hazrat Abbas ﷺ takes a different route on the way back. He does not charge into the enemies. He wants to protect the water bag. So he takes a different route, where the enemy was least present. But the enemy tries to stop him. They shower arrows over him. But he is able to protect the water bag till they realize that we will not be able to prevent Abbas from taking the water bag back to the camp. So they decide to hide behind the trees and attack through deception and trickery. Hazrat Abbas ﷺ had his water bag on the right shoulder, and he was galloping towards the camp, hoping to take the water back to the camps, when one of the army soldiers stepped forward from behind the tree and chopped off Hazrat Abbas's right arm. And Hazrat Abbas announces that in this verse. He says, Wallahi in qata'atum yamini inni uhami abadan an dini. By Allah, even if you chop off my right hand, I will still protect with all my might my deen and my Imam, the son of the holy prophet of Allah. He announces that his right hand has been chopped off. He immediately puts the water bag on his left shoulder. A little time passes by, and another soldier comes and chops off its left arm. When his left arm is chopped off, he announces this, Ya nafsu la takhshi minal kuffar. When you lose both of your hands, when a warrior loses both hands, there is room to fear the enemy. He consoles his soul, saying, Ya nafsu, my soul, don't fear the enemy. Wa abshiri bi rahmatil jabbar. I give you the glad tidings of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ma'an Nabi Sayyid al-Mukhtar. You will be with the Nabi al-Mukhtar. Qad qata'u bi baghyihim yasari. Verily they have chopped off my left arm by trickery and deception. Faslihim ya Rabbi harran nar. O my Lord, make them taste the fire of hell. He announces that his left arm has been chopped off as well. He hides the water bag with his body and continues to gallop towards the camps of Imam Hussain ﷺ. This is his only mission now, to take this water securely to the camps. As he was rushing towards the camp, the enemy's soldiers fired him with arrows came from all over the sides, and it pierced his body, and an arrow came and pierced the water bag. As soon as the water trickled down, it was as if this arrow had pierced his heart, and blood has trickled down from his heart. He is standing all alone now with no water in his bag. What should Abbas do now? क्या करें अब्बास? खुदावंद आलम किसी को इस तरह से मायूस न करे जिस तरह से अब्बास मायूस हो गए. He cannot go back to the camps. There is no water. He cannot go back to the river Euphrates. There are no hands to fight and get more water. He was standing all alone, not knowing what to do. Then an enemy soldier with an iron rod in his hand, he comes forward and hits the head Hazrat Abbas. Hazrat Abbas falls to the ground. Ya akhi adrikni. Oh my brother, come to my rescue. Oh my brother, come to my rescue. Hazrat Hussain alayhi salam comes to rescue in a very quick manner. He finds Hazrat Abbas there with blood in one of his eyes. Probably there was an arrow in one of his eyes. During his entire life, Hazrat Abbas ने अपने भाई को कभी भाई कहकर नहीं पुकारा. जब भी पुकारा या इमाम कहकर या अपना रसूलुल्लाह कहकर. लेकिन इस आखिरी वक्त जब घोड़े से गिरे हैं तो ऐ भाई मेरी मदद को आइए. ये क्या बात है कि आखिरी वक्त में भाई कहकर पुकारा है? तो इसकी एक वजह यह बयान की जाती है कि जब घोड़े से शाहसवार गिरा करते हैं अपने हाथों के सहारे से गिरा करते हैं. लेकिन हजरत अब्बास के पास तो हाथ ही न थे. किस तरह से गिरते, किसके सहारे गिरते? देखा, एक मर्तबा देखा एक बीबी बुर्का पोश है जो गोदी बहलाए हुए हैं. ऐ मेरे बेटे, मेरी आगोश में आ जा. जब जनाबे सैयदा ने बेटा कहकर पुकार लिया, इसी मुनासिबत से अब हुसैन को भाई कहकर पुकारा. या अखी अदरिकनी. أجركم على الله على لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept what was read, to accept our amal, and to protect all the mu'mineen throughout this world who are commemorating these events, especially the mu'mineen in the oppressed lands, in the mu'mineen in our neighboring country, Afghanistan especially. And may Allah grant freedom to all the oppressed who are fighting for their freedom. May Allah cure our sick. May Allah protect all of us from this pandemic. May Allah enable us to do our own tarbiyah and the tarbiyah of our children so that we end up in the camps of the 12th Imam. May Allah protect our ulama, our baraji, especially the Wali Amr Muslimin, those who have hajat in their hearts. May Allah please accept all of these hajat and guide us to be part of the movement of Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Matam Hussain.
Stand for Matam. قمر بني هاشم Abbas, shelter of Zainab Abbas. Qamar Bani Hashim Abbas, shelter of Zainab Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas, Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas, Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas, Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas. Qamar Bani Hashim Abbas, shelter of Zainab Abbas, Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas, Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas. Qamar Bani Hashim Abbas, shelter of Zainab Abbas, Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas, Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas. Pride of Amirul Mu'mineen, Lion of Banin. Pride of Amirul
Mu'mineen, Lion of Banin.
Lion of Banin. Who can be brave as you, Mawla? Who can be brave as you, Mawla? Who can your loyalty surpass? Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas, Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas. Qamar Bani Hashim Abbas,
shelter of Zainab Abbas.
You are the Ghazi of Al-Qamar, the ultimate Sultan of Wafa. You are the Ghazi
of Al-Qamar, the ultimate Sultan of Wafa.
The ultimate Sultan of Wafa. You are the Qamar Bani Hashim. You are the Qamar Bani Hashim. Who can match your strength and class? Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas, Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas. Qamar Bani Hashim Abbas, shelter of Zainab Abbas. Everyone, Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas, Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas. No scholar in history could fathom your mystery.
No scholar in history could fathom your mystery.
Could fathom your mystery. Firm as iron, soft as snow. Firm as iron, soft as snow. Sher jari qalb hassas. Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas, Ya Abbas, oh Ya. Everyone, Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas,
Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas.
One Abbas Karbala versus all of Ashqiya. One Abbas
Karbala versus all of Ashqiya.
versus all of Ashqiya. Kujahi of Imam Zama, Kujahi of Imam Zama. Kuja the shar of jinn wan nas. Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas, Ya Abbas, oh Ya. Everyone, Ya Abbas, oh
Ya Abbas,
Ya Abbas, oh
Ya Abbas.
Said Abbas unto Hussain, with you Mawla till the end. Said Abbas unto Hussain,
With you Mawla till the end.
will you Mawla till the end. In this Laylatul Ashura, in this Laylatul Ashura. Aka, your haqq is clear as glass. Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas, Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas, Qamar Bani Hashim,
Abbas, shelter of Zainab Abbas.
Sham Ghariban Karbala, helpless orphans Ashqiya. Sham
Ghariban Karbala,
helpless orphans Ashqiya, helpless orphans Ashqiya. Where are you, Ammu Ghazi? Where are you, Ammu Ghazi? Cry Sakina, hai pyas. Where are you, Ammu Ghazi? Cry Sakina, hai pyas. Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas. Everyone.
Abbas, oh Ya Abbas.
Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas, Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas, Qamar Bani Hashim Abbas, shelter of Zainab Abbas. Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas, Ya Abbas, oh Ya Abbas, Ya Hussain. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. مؤمنين ومؤمنات متوجه زيارة. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين وابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليك وعلى جدك وأبيك، السلام عليك وعلى أمك وأخيك، السلام عليك وعلى 9 المعصومين من ذريتك. Everyone. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولاي يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك يا معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام عليك يا شمس الشموس، يا أنيس النفوس، أيها المدفون بأرض طوس، يا سلطان العرب والعجم، يا علي بن موسى الرضا الراضي بالقدر والقضاء ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا صاحب العصر والأمر والزمان، السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان، عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وجعلنا من أنصارك وأعوانك ورحمة الله وبركاته. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Just a reminder that we start at 5:20 sharp and we end around this time.